I froze when my husband put our cabin up for sale without telling me. My name wasn't even on the listing. He thought it was just property. I knew it was my foundation. So I didn't scream. I changed the locks and rewrote the rules. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Harper. I'm 31 years old. And this is what really happened. The first thing I heard was the wind. Cold lake wind cutting across the dock. Sharp. Restless. October in northern Michigan doesn't ease you in. Then, I saw the sign. Whiteboard, red border. For sale. Staked into the yard like a warning. My husband's name printed neatly under the realtor's logo. Not mine. I froze halfway up the gravel driveway. The crunch of stones under my tires still echoed in the trees. The porch swing creaked on its chains, swaying slowly like it had been waiting for me. I had driven up from Chicago expecting quiet. A solo weekend. My laptop in the passenger seat. A Starbucks cup half finished in the holder. I needed space to think, for instead, the space was being sold. The cabin smelled like damp wood and faint chimney smoke when I opened the door. Same pine floors, same stone fireplace, same faded plaid couch my dad bought 20 years ago. But now, there was a realtor lockbox hanging from the front handle. Strangers had a code. I stepped back outside and looked at the sign again. The cabin was never just property. It's where my father taught me to tie a fishing knot with frozen fingers. Where my mom wrapped herself in a wool blanket the winter before she got sick. Where we scattered her ashes at sunrise off the dock. And my husband had listed it like it was an Airbnb flip. I called him. He answered casually. "Hey, you make it up there?" "I'm standing in front of a for sale sign," I said. A small pause. "I was going to tell you," he replied. The porch swing creaked again behind me. "You already told the internet," I said. "Zillow, Redfin, Instagram ads. Just not me." "It's not final," he said. "I'm just testing the market." Testing the market, like he was checking the weather. "You can't list it without me," I said evenly. "You're overreacting." There it was, the word. Overreacting is what people say when you notice too quickly. "It's an asset, Harper," he continued. "We can use the equity." Equity. He reduced my childhood to a number. "I'm on the deed," I reminded him. "We're married. It's fine." Nothing about this felt fine. I walked inside again and shut the door. The wood felt cool under my palm. The cabin was quiet except for the wind brushing against the siding. I went straight to the hallway cabinet where we keep the documents. My dad had always said, "Paper is power. I don't trust memory." I pulled out the deed copy, joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. Both our names printed clearly, meaning he cannot sell it without my notarized consent. I opened my phone and pulled up the listing. Charming rustic lake retreat, investment opportunity. Investment. That word kept appearing like a stain. The property details listed him as primary owner. My name was missing. I felt something shift inside me, not panic, not grief. Clarity. Some betrayals don't explode. They quietly rearrange your understanding of someone. I dialed the brokerage number listed on the ad. A woman answered. "Professional? Bright. Lakefront Realty, how may I help you?" "This is Harper Collins," I said, "co-owner of the Maple Shore cabin you listed today." Keyboard clicking. "Yes, Mrs. G. Collins. I did not authorize this listing." Another pause. "Our file shows digital consent from both owners." "That's interesting," I replied calmly, "because I never signed anything." Silence. "We'll need to review the documentation," she said. "I suggest you do," I answered. I ended the call and opened our shared email account. There it was. DocuSign notification from 3 nights ago. Subject: property listing authorization. My name typed at the bottom. A signature applied. Except it wasn't mine. It looked close. Practiced, but wrong. He had forged it. The word sat heavy in my mind. Forged. I took screenshots, saved them to my private drive, forwarded them to myself. Then I opened the Grand Traverse County property portal. If he thought I wouldn't check the filings, he underestimated who raised me. And I called the county recorder's office. A man with a steady voice answered. I explained the situation carefully. No emotion, just facts. He walked me through filing a notice of disputed authorization. Submit the affidavit within 48 hours, he said. Have it notarized. I wrote down the case reference number, County Court Record Number 2025-CVI-11873, signed by Notary Public. Seeing those numbers made it real. This wasn't a disagreement. It was a legal line. I walked back outside. The wind was colder now, the sky fading toward gray-blue. The for sale sign stood stubborn in the yard. I gripped the wooden frame and pulled. The stake resisted at first. Gravel shifted. Then it came loose. I laid it flat on the grass. Not broken, just removed. My phone buzzed. Husband? Why did the brokerage just call me? I didn't answer. Another message. Husband. Harper, what are you doing? I stared at the porch swing, moving slowly. What am I doing? I'm protecting what you tried to liquidate. I walked to the front door and examined the lockbox again. It hung there like permission granted to strangers. I got in my car and drove into town. Traverse City is small. Hardware shops close early in October. I found a locksmith on Front Street. The place smelled like metal and oil. The man behind the counter looked up. Evening, he said. I need every lock at my property changed tonight, I replied. He studied me briefly, then nodded. Lake cabin? Yes. We drove back together. The trees along the road were bright with red and orange leaves. The lake looked dark under the fading sky. He removed the realtor lockbox first. It clanked into his toolbox. Problem? He asked. Unauthorized listing, I said. He didn't ask more. He replaced the front lock, then the back door, then the sliding glass door facing the dock. Each turn of his screwdriver sounded final. When he handed me the new keys, they felt heavier than the old ones. Solid. Certain. I paid him and watched his truck disappear down the road. Inside, I placed my father's old brass skeleton key on the kitchen table. That key never opened the main door. It was from the original cabin lock decades ago, but I kept it as a reminder. Not everything that holds value is visible. My phone buzzed again. Husband, why can't I access the keypad? I had already disabled the code remotely. I typed back slowly. Me. We'll talk when you get here. The wind pressed against the windows. The porch swing creaked again. I stood in the center of the living room and looked around. Same stone fireplace, same pine beams. But something had changed. He thought the cabin was leverage. He forgot it was my foundation. And foundations don't negotiate. I turned off the lights one by one and locked the new door behind me. The lake kept moving in the dark. And this time, I wasn't frozen. The lake was louder that night. Waves hitting the dock in steady rhythm. Wind pushing against the siding like it wanted answers. I didn't sleep much. Every creak of the cabin felt amplified. The new locks clicked softly when the temperature dropped. The keypad light blinked blue by the door. He tried the old code twice at 11:42 p.m. My phone notified me. Access denied. Then again at 11:44. Access denied. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. the deed beside me, and my father's brass key resting on top of it. There's something about paperwork at midnight. It feels colder, more honest. He called at 11:51. I answered on the third ring. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I secured the property," I replied. "You locked me out of my own cabin." "Our cabin," I corrected. He exhaled sharply. "You're proving my point." "Which is?" "That you're too emotional about this." The wind rattled the windows. "No," I said calmly. "I'm methodical." Silence. He changed tactics. "We need the money," he said. "For what?" Pause. "Just expenses. Be specific." Another pause. Longer this time. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me." "I understand numbers," I said. "I understand signatures. I understand consent." "You're blowing this up," he snapped. "You forged my name." "I didn't forge anything." "The DocuSign metadata says otherwise." He went quiet. Metadata doesn't lie. It tracks IP addresses, timestamps, device type. He hadn't even tried to hide it well. "You checked that?" he asked. "Yes." He muttered something under his breath. "You could have talked to me," I said. "I was going to." "After the showing?" "It wasn't a showing. There's a lockbox on the door." Silence again. He shifted tone. "Look, the market's high right now. It's just smart." "Smart doesn't require forgery." He inhaled sharply. "You're making this into a legal thing." "It already is." Outside, the wind slowed for a moment, then picked up again. "I'll drive up tomorrow," he said. "You can try," I replied. "Try?" I changed the locks. Dead quiet on the line. "You did what?" "You don't get to give strangers access to my childhood." He laughed once. Short, disbelieving. "You're insane." Insane. Another leash word. "No," I said. "I'm prepared." He hung up. I stared at the dark screen. Prepared feels colder than angry. I reopened the email thread and dug deeper. There were attachments I hadn't noticed before. A pre-approval letter from a lender. A personal line of credit. $180,000. My breath didn't catch. It slowed. I opened the PDF issued 3 months ago. His name only. Collateral options listed. Property assets. The cabin was highlighted. I scrolled further. Crypto exchange confirmations, large transfers, inconsistent patterns, withdrawals. I leaned back in the chair. It wasn't equity planning. It was damage control. He hadn't been selling for financial freedom. He'd been trying to plug a hole. My phone buzzed again. "Maya, you okay?" Me. He opened a $180,000 line of credit. 3 dots. Maya. "Without you?" Me? "Yes." Maya. "Harper." I could picture her sitting at her kitchen island in Chicago, wrapped in one of those oversized sweaters she loves. Maya. "That's not stress. That's secrecy." I looked at the brass key on the table. My dad used to say, "If someone hides numbers from you, they're hiding decisions." I checked our joint checking account next. Lower than it should have been. Transfers labeled vaguely. Consulting, investment, opportunity, the language of avoidance. I opened my banking app and froze the joint account access temporarily. Not permanently, just to hold on outgoing transfers over a certain threshold. If he wanted to move more money, he'd need my authorization. My phone rang immediately. "You froze the account?" he demanded. "Yes. You can't just..." "I can. Joint authorization works both ways." "You're punishing me." "No," I said evenly. "I'm stabilizing us. You're humiliating me. You humiliated yourself when you forged my name." He exhaled hard. "It was temporary," he said. "So is trust." Silence again. Then he switched tone. "I did it for us." The most dangerous sentence in a marriage? For us doesn't erase without me, I replied. You always cling to that place like it's sacred. It is. It's wood and land. It's memory. You can't mortgage memory. You tried. The porch swing outside banged lightly against the railing. I thought I could fix it before you noticed, he said quietly. There it was. Not denial. Admission. What exactly were you fixing? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he said, you wouldn't understand crypto volatility. I almost smiled. Volatility is just a polite word for risk, I said. You don't support me. I don't support secrets. He went quiet again. Drive up tomorrow, I said. We'll talk face to face. And you'll let me in? That depends. On what? On honesty. I hung up before he could respond. The lake kept moving. I closed the laptop and walked to the dock. The wood felt cold under my bare feet. The water was dark, endless. This place had always steadied me. He saw it as leverage. I saw it as lineage. The wind shifted direction slightly. I stood there for a long time, not crying, not yelling, just thinking. Marriage isn't broken by one fight. It fractures when truth becomes optional. I walked back inside and installed the small security cameras I'd bought months ago, just in case. I hadn't planned to use them like this. But here we were. Each camera synced to my phone. Each angle covered. Front door, back door, dock. If he came angry, I'd have record. If he came apologetic, I'd have record. Documentation beats denial. I set the brass key beside my bed that night, not because it fit the new lock, but because it reminded me that some things are older than marriage and stronger. My phone lit up one last time before I turned it face down. Husband, we'll talk tomorrow. Don't overreact. I didn't respond. The porch swing creaked again in the dark, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, the light came in, thin and pale. October sunlight through pine branches always looks softer up here, almost forgiving. I made coffee in my dad's old percolator. The metal clicked and hissed on the stove. The smell filled the kitchen the way it always had. Familiar. Grounded. My phone buzzed before the first cup was poured. Husband. Leaving Chicago now. No apology, no explanation, just logistics. I sat at the table with my laptop open again. I had pulled the DocuSign file metadata overnight. IP address, timestamp, device type. Signed at 12:14 a.m. 3 days ago, from our condo Wi-Fi. While I was asleep in the bedroom down the hall, that detail settled something in me. Not just secrecy. Deliberate concealment. I opened the line of credit document again. $180,000 approved through an online lender. Variable interest. In cabin listed under potential collateral assets. He hadn't told me because he didn't want my vote. He wanted my signature. Without me. I called the brokerage manager directly this time, not the receptionist. He picked up on the fourth ring. Harper Collins, I said. I'm following up regarding unauthorized listing activity. Yes, Mrs. Collins, he replied carefully. I need written confirmation that the listing is suspended pending verification of dual consent. Pause. We're reviewing the documents. Review faster, I said, because if this proceeds without my notarized approval, your firm becomes complicit. Silence. We'll pause the listing, he said finally. Email confirmation, I added. You'll have it within the hour. I ended the call. The lake outside looked darker than yesterday. Wind shifting direction again. My phone buzzed. Email received. Listing temporarily withdrawn. Pending documentation review. Temporarily. Good. But temporary isn't protection. I printed the email and added it to the folder. Paper is power. At 10:17 a.m., I heard gravel crunch in the driveway. His truck. I didn't move right away. Let him try the door. The keypad beeped. Denied. Then the handle rattled. Then a knock. Sharp. Impatient. I walked to the door slowly. I opened it halfway. Left the chain on. He looked tired. Hoodie pulled tight. Jaw tense. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. "Boundaries," I replied. He glanced at the removed for sale sign lying flat by the porch. "You embarrassed me with the brokerage," he said. "You embarrassed yourself when you forged my name." I didn't forge. I held up my phone. IP address. Timestamp. Our Wi-Fi. He blinked. "You went through all that?" "Yes." The wind pushed against the door between us. "You didn't need to go nuclear," he said. "I filed a notice of disputed authorization this morning." His face shifted. "You filed what?" "County Court Record Number 2025-CV-11873, signed by Notary Public." His eyes flickered. "You involved the county? You involved fraud." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're overcomplicating this." "No," I said calmly. "I'm containing it." He tried to peer past me into the cabin. "Let me in." "Not yet." "Harper, this is ridiculous." "Ridiculous is risking our only debt-free asset for crypto volatility." He flinched slightly. "So that hit. You went through my emails?" "They're shared. You're acting like I'm a criminal." "You forged my name." Silence stretched between us. He stepped back from the door, hands on his hips. I was going to fix it," he said. "With what?" The market was bouncing back. "On what platform?" He didn't answer. "FTX?" I asked quietly. "Or one of the newer exchanges?" His jaw tightened. "I had leverage positions," he muttered. "Leverage, another word for borrowed risk." "How much did you lose?" He looked past me toward the lake. "Not everything." "That's not a number." 80? 80,000? I asked. He nodded once. "And you opened a line of credit to recover it." He didn't deny it. "And when that didn't stabilize fast enough," I continued, "you listed the cabin." He exhaled sharply. "I was protecting us." "No," I said. "You were protecting your pride." The porch swing creaked again. "You always cling to this place like it's sacred," he said, softer now. "It is. It's wood and land. It's lineage." He looked at me differently then, less angry, more calculating. "You'd choose this over me?" "I'm choosing transparency. That's not the same." "It is when trust is gone." He stepped closer to the door. "I need access," he said. "We're married. Marriage doesn't grant you unilateral liquidation rights." "You sound like a lawyer." "I consulted one." His eyes widened slightly. "You're serious?" "Yes." He tried another angle. "What do you want?" Finally, "I want full disclosure," I said. "All accounts, all debt, all transactions." "You don't trust me." "Correct." The word landed cleanly. He swallowed. "I can fix this." "You already tried." The wind shifted again, colder now. "I thought I could turn it around before you noticed," he admitted quietly. There it was again. The assumption. He believed I wouldn't notice. "I always notice," I said. He looked tired suddenly. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." "You made it bigger when you forged consent." Silence, then softer, almost pleading. "Let's not blow up our marriage over money." "Money didn't do this," I said. "Secrecy did." He stared at me. "You'd lock me out?" "I'd lock out risk." "That includes me?" "If you act like a risk." The words surprised even me with their steadiness. He stepped back fully from the door. "Fine," he said. "File your papers. Change your locks." "I already did." He let out a short laugh. Not amused. Frustrated. "You think you've won something. I'm not trying to win." "Then what?" "I'm trying to keep what's mine." He looked at the lake again. "You're different up here," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm clearer." The wind carried the smell of pine and cold water between us. He pulled his hoodie tighter. "I'll send you the statements," he muttered. "All of them." He nodded once. "And Harper?" "Yes?" "If we don't sell this, I'm going to be underwater." Then we address that honestly. "And if honesty costs us?" "It already has." He didn't respond. He walked back toward his truck slowly. The gravel crunched under his boots. I watched him drive away. The cabin stood quiet again. I closed the door and removed the chain. Then I walked to the kitchen table and picked up my father's brass key. It never fit the new locks, but it fit the truth. And right now, that mattered more. The lake felt colder the next morning, not in temperature, in tone. Wind dragged across the surface in sharp lines. The dock ropes creaked under tension. Even the porch swing sounded strained. I woke up before sunrise and checked my email. He had sent the statements at 2:13 a.m. Subject line, "Everything." I opened them slowly. Credit card statements first. Large wire transfers to crypto exchanges. Repeated buys during market dips, followed by even larger leveraged positions. He hadn't been investing. He had been chasing. I moved to the line of credit file again. $180,000 approved. $140,000 drawn down. Available balance, $40,000. Interest accruing daily. My stomach didn't drop. It steadied. Numbers don't scare me. Deception does. There were late notices attached to 2 of the credit cards. Minimum payments missed. Penalty APR applied. He wasn't just underwater. He was scrambling. I printed every page, stacked them neatly beside the deed and the brokerage suspension email. Paper is power. At 8:22 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Husband, I told you everything. Not everything." I opened our joint brokerage account next. There it was. Margin call warning. Triggered 3 days before he listed the cabin. He hadn't been selling to invest. He'd been selling to survive his own risk. I dialed the attorney I'd spoken to yesterday, a woman named Claire based in Traverse City. She answered quickly. "Harper, I was expecting your call." "I reviewed the financials," I said. "There's significant undisclosed debt. That strengthens your position." "I don't want position," I replied. "I want protection." "Then we formalize it," she said calmly. She explained the next steps. A file for temporary financial separation. Request a freeze on joint liability expansion. Document the forged signature formally. "Forgery is serious," she added. "I know." "You have 2 choices," she continued. "Repair privately or create a record publicly." The lake wind rattled the kitchen window. "I want a record," I said. "Then we move forward." She asked me to email everything. I did. By noon, she had drafted a preliminary notice of financial dispute. I printed it. The words looked heavier on paper than in email. Notice of intent to separate financial liability. It felt like a shift. Not divorce, but distance. My phone rang at 12:17 p.m. He was calling again. I answered. "You involved an attorney?" he asked. "Yes." "You're escalating. You forged my signature. You keep repeating that like it was malicious." "What would you call it?" "Desperate. Desperation doesn't erase legality. You could ruin me." he said quietly. I'm not ruining you, I replied. Your leverage positions did. Silence. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I didn't want you to look at me like this. Like what? Like I failed. I leaned against the kitchen counter. You didn't fail because you lost money, I said. You failed because you hid it. He breathed heavily on the other end. I thought I could fix it, he repeated. You can't fix secrecy with more secrecy. He didn't argue. I'm sending you a formal notice, I said. For what? Financial separation. You're overreacting. No, I replied. I'm responding. The porch swing creaked again. Are you filing for divorce? He asked. Not today. The word hung between us. But I am filing documentation. You're going to humiliate me. I'm protecting myself. Silence. You'd choose the cabin over us, he said again. I looked around the kitchen, the old oak table, the pine walls, the window overlooking the lake. I'm choosing truth, I answered. He didn't reply. I ended the call. By mid-afternoon, Claire emailed the official affidavit for signature. Affidavit of non-consent to property sale attempt. It required notarization. I drove into town again. The UPS store near the marina offers notary services. I signed the affidavit in front of a notary public at 3:47 p.m. Stamped, sealed, official. It felt strange signing my name to defend it from him. On the way back to the cabin, Yantai stopped by a small electronics shop and purchased 2 more outdoor security cameras. Not out of fear, out of clarity. If he tried to access the property again, I'd have documentation. I installed them facing the driveway and dock. My phone synced immediately. 4 angles now covered. Front door, back door, driveway, dock, transparency. At 5:12 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Email from the brokerage. Listing officially withdrawn pending ownership dispute. Pending. Good. But pending still leaves space. I forwarded it to Claire. Then I walked outside. The for sale sign still lay flat in the grass where I had pulled it. I picked it up and carried it to the shed. I didn't destroy it. I stored it. Because this wasn't about rage. It was about record. The sky shifted toward pink and gray as the sun dropped. I stood at the edge of the dock. The water looked darker than it had yesterday. Marriage doesn't end with shouting. It erodes with silence. My phone buzzed again. Husband. Are you trying to end this? I typed back slowly. Me. I'm trying to understand it. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then husband. I was ashamed. I stared at the message. Ashamed of the loss, ashamed of the debt, ashamed of being seen as reckless, but not ashamed enough to tell me. Shame hides. Integrity speaks. I slipped my phone into my pocket. The wind had softened slightly, but the air still carried weight. Inside, I placed the notarized affidavit on the table beside the deed. 2 documents. 2 truths. He thought the cabin was collateral. He forgot it was covenant. And covenants aren't signed in secret. The temperature dropped overnight. Not just outside. Inside me. The cabin was quieter now. Not fragile. Just alert. I woke before dawn and checked the camera feed from the driveway. Empty. But at 6:12 a.m., a notification popped up. Motion detected. Dock camera. I tapped it immediately. It was just wind. The lake pushing harder than usual. I exhaled slowly. Living under surveillance changes your rhythm, even when you're the one who installed it. I made coffee again. Same percolator, same metallic hiss. I didn't turn on music. I wanted silence. Silence tells you where you stand. My phone buzzed at 7:03 a.m. Husband, I'm meeting with the lender today. Good? Me. Send me the paperwork. No heart emojis, no softness, just logistics. An hour later, he sent a PDF loan modification request. He was asking for extended terms. Interest-only payments for 6 months. I read it carefully. He listed monthly income projections. He did not mention the forged listing attempt. I forwarded it to Claire. She replied within 15 minutes. Good. He's acknowledging distress. Acknowledgement is leverage. I opened the joint banking app again. No outgoing transfers overnight. The freeze held. I adjusted the daily withdrawal threshold lower. If he wanted to move large amounts, he'd need to call me. Control isn't cruelty. It's correction. At 10:41 a.m., another email arrived from the brokerage's legal department. Formal confirmation, listing permanently withdrawn pending co-owner consent. Permanently. I printed that too. The stack of documents on the kitchen table was growing. Deed, affidavit, brokerage suspension, loan modification, marriage reduced to paperwork. But paperwork doesn't gaslight you. At 12:09 p.m., my phone rang again. Husband, I answered. They're restructuring the loan, he said. For how long? 6 months, interest only. And after that, I'll recover. With what capital? Silence. You don't believe in me, he said. I believe in numbers. That's cold. It's accurate. He exhaled slowly. You've changed, he said. No, I replied. You stopped telling the truth. The wind hit the windows again. I was scared, he admitted. Of what? Looking incompetent. You looked worse, hiding it. He didn't argue. Are you filing for divorce? He asked again. I'm filing for protection, I answered. That sounds the same. It isn't. Silence stretched. Then he said something new. If we don't sell, I might have to liquidate my retirement. That's yours, I said. Well, not mine. You'd watch me lose everything? I watched you risk everything without me. The porch swing creaked again. He was quiet for a long time. I didn't think you'd go this far, he said. I didn't think you would either. We sat in that mutual realization. He finally spoke again. I'll drive up tomorrow. Why? To talk? We've talked? Face to face? I hesitated. The cameras were installed. The locks changed. The documents filed. Yes, I said, but on the driveway. You won't let me inside? Not until we sign transparency. Sign what? A financial disclosure agreement. You're unbelievable. No, I replied. I'm documented. He hung up. I walked outside to clear my head. The lake smelled sharper today. Colder. Almost metallic. I stepped down onto the dock. The wood felt rough under my fingers. My dad used to sand this dock every spring. Maintenance prevents collapse. I thought about that. Maintenance in marriage is honesty. Without it, rot spreads quietly. My phone buzzed again. Maya, you okay? Me. He's restructuring debt. Maya. And you? Me. Restructuring boundaries. She sent a simple heart. Support doesn't fix things, but it steadies you. Back inside, I opened my laptop again. I drafted a simple document. Mutual financial transparency agreement. Full disclosure of all accounts. Monthly review meeting. No asset liquidation without notarized dual consent. Simple, clear. I sent it to Claire for review. She responded with edits. We finalized it within the hour. I emailed it to him. Subject: sign before we speak. No extra words. At 4:33 p.m., he replied, Is this a joke? No, I didn't respond. At 5:02 p.m., motion alert on driveway camera. I opened the feed. His truck. He was early. I walked to the front door and watched him step out, hands in pockets, shoulders tense. He looked smaller than yesterday, not physically, emotionally. I opened the door halfway, chain still on. You're here? I said. You sent me a contract? Yes. You want me to sign this before you even let me in? Yes. He stared at me. This feels like business. It is. We're married. Marriage is a legal contract, too. He didn't like that. I thought you'd calm down, he said. I did. He looked past me into the cabin. You've turned this into a courtroom. You turned it into one when you forged consent. Silence. He pulled out his phone, opened the document, scrolled. The wind pushed against us again. You really think I'd do it again? He asked. Yes. The word landed without hesitation. He swallowed. You don't trust me at all. Not with assets. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. Fine, he said quietly. He tapped the signature line. Signed. I received the notification instantly. Signed at 5:08 p.m. IP address logged. Time stamped. Documented. He looked up at me. Now what? I removed the chain, but I didn't step aside. Now, I said, we talk about what this marriage actually is. The lake moved behind him. The cabin stood steady. And for the first time since I saw that sign in the yard, I felt something different. Not fear, not anger. Control. He stepped inside slowly. Not like he owned it, like he was visiting. The cabin air held that mix of pine and cooled fireplace ash. Familiar, grounded, unmoved. He looked around the living room as if checking what had changed. Nothing had. Everything had. The document he signed was still open on my laptop at the kitchen table. The notification timestamp glowed at the top of the screen. Signed. 5:08 p.m. IP logged. You're serious about this, he said quietly. I've been serious since I saw the sign, I replied. He nodded once. I didn't offer him a drink. Didn't ask if he was hungry. We weren't there for comfort. We sat across from each other at the oak kitchen table. The stack of papers sat between us like a third presence. Loan statements, credit card balances, margin calls, the affidavit, the brokerage withdrawal email. He stared at the pile. You printed all of it? He asked. Yes. You didn't have to. I did. Paper doesn't argue. He ran a hand over his face. I messed up, he said finally. How? I asked. He looked up at me. I got greedy. There it was. Not fear, not necessity. Greed. I thought I could double what we had, he continued. Everyone online was talking about it. Leverage, momentum. And you believed them. I believed myself. That part was honest. And when it dropped? I asked. I thought it would bounce. And when it didn't? I thought I could recover if I had liquidity. Liquidity. Another clean word for panic. You didn't come to me, I said. I didn't want you to stop me. That answer didn't surprise me. You didn't want to vote, I said. I wanted control. The wind pushed against the siding. He looked around the cabin again. I didn't think you'd react like this. How did you think I'd react? Upset? Emotional? Maybe cry? I almost smiled. And then eventually agree. There it was. He thought my attachment made me predictable. Emotion isn't weakness, I said. It's information. He didn't argue. You saw this place as leverage, I continued. I see it as identity. He leaned back in the chair. I didn't grow up with something like this, he said quietly. To me, it's wood. Land, a financial cushion. To me, it's memory, I replied. You don't liquidate memory to fix pride. He winced slightly. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You were trying to avoid shame. Silence. He stared at the brass key on the table. That key doesn't even fit the new locks, he said. I know. Then why keep it there? Because it reminds me what came before you. The words weren't cruel. They were factual. He swallowed. I thought marriage meant we handle things privately, he said. It does, I replied, until privacy becomes concealment. The dock ropes creaked outside. You filed with the county, he said. Yes. Is that permanent? It's recorded. He nodded slowly. So if anyone checks the property history, they'll see the dispute. He let out a long breath. You really locked me out, he said again. I locked out risk. And I'm risk? You acted like it. He looked down at his hands. I'm going to fix the debt, he said. How? I'll sell my brokerage account. Liquidate what's left. That's yours, I said. Not mine. I'll take a second consulting contract. Then do it transparently. He nodded again. Silence settled, but it wasn't hostile. It was measured. What happens now? He asked. I didn't answer immediately, because the answer wasn't simple. We operate separately, I said finally. Financially, for now. And emotionally? That depends on behavior. He looked up sharply. So this is probation? This is clarity. He leaned forward. I love you. I know. That should count. It does, I said. But love without integrity is unstable. He looked at the stack of papers again. I never thought I'd be sitting here negotiating with my wife like this. I never thought I'd be verifying my husband's signature. We held eye contact. Not angry, just aware. Are you filing for separation? He asked again. Legal separation of finances, I said. Not necessarily marriage. Yet? Yet depends on you. The word hung heavy. He stood up slowly and walked toward the window overlooking the lake. The wind had calmed slightly. It's beautiful here, he said. Yes? I didn't respect what it meant to you. No, I agreed. He turned back toward me. I thought if I fixed the numbers, the rest wouldn't matter. But the numbers came from you, I said, and you hid them. He nodded once. I'll give you full access to everything, he said. Passwords, accounts, all of it. You already signed that. I mean, beyond the paper. Then act like it. He stepped toward the front door. You're still not giving me a key, he said. Not yet. That hurts? So did the sign. He paused. Fair. He stepped outside. The porch swing moved gently again. He turned back once more. I'm not your enemy, he said. I know, I replied. But you acted like your own. He nodded slowly, then walked down the gravel driveway to his truck. I watched until the dust settled. Then I closed the door and locked it. The cabin felt steady again. Not safe, not fragile, just steady. I walked back to the table and picked up the brass key. He thought the cabin was a financial cushion. He forgot it was structural. And when something is structural, you don't gamble with it. You guard it. The first snow came early that year, not heavy, just a thin white layer across the dock and pine needles, enough to change the color of everything. I stood at the window that morning watching it fall. The cabin looked quieter under snow. Less exposed, my phone buzzed. Claire, he's filed his financial disclosure, she said. All of it? I asked. Everything we requested. Accounts, credit lines, investment platforms. I exhaled slowly. Good, I said. He's liquidating what remains of the brokerage portfolio. How much? After losses. About $42,000. Not enough to erase the debt, but enough to show movement. Are you proceeding with formal separation? She asked. Not yet. Then what's the plan? Structure, I said. Not destruction. She paused. That's rare, she said. I'm not trying to win, I replied. I'm trying to stabilize. After I hung up, I walked outside. The snow crunched softly under my boots. The spot where the for sale sign had stood was still visible. Slight indentation in the gravel. That mark would fade, but I wouldn't forget it. My phone buzzed again. Husband. I sent the remaining passwords. I opened the shared document. There they were. Email, brokerage, crypto exchange, loan portal. Transparency feels quiet. Not dramatic, just exposed. I logged into the crypto account. Balance, $12,814. From $80,000, a hard lesson in digits. He wasn't a villain. He was reckless. There's a difference. By noon, he texted again. Husband, can I come up this weekend? I stared at the screen. Before, I would have said yes automatically. Now I measured. Me. For what purpose? 3 dots. Husband. To talk. Me. About? Husband. Us? I didn't respond right away. I stepped onto the dock instead. The lake was partially frozen along the edges. Thin ice forming delicate lines. Marriage doesn't crack all at once. It fractures quietly. Back inside, I typed, me, Sunday? 2 p.m. driveway. He replied almost instantly. Husband. Inside? Me? Driveway. Boundaries are not punishment. They are calibration. Sunday came colder than expected. The snow had melted slightly but left slush along the gravel. At 1:58 p.m., the driveway camera pinged. His truck again. I walked outside before he knocked. The wind hit hard against my coat. He stepped out, hands visible, shoulders less tense than last time. You look tired, he said. I am. So am I. We stood facing each other on the gravel. Not enemies, but not aligned. I sold the brokerage account, he said. So I saw. I made the first payment toward the line of credit. I saw that too, he nodded. I canceled the remaining leverage positions. Good. Silence stretched between us. Then he said something I didn't expect. I told my brother. About what? About the debt. I studied his face. And? He called me an idiot. I almost laughed. And? He said I should have told you first. Smart brother. He shifted his weight. I've never felt this exposed, he said. That's what transparency feels like. He looked down at the gravel. I hate that I hurt you. I hate that you assumed I'd fold. He looked up. I didn't think you'd go legal. I didn't think you'd go secret. The wind moved between us. I was ashamed, he said again. I know. But I didn't realize shame turns into damage when you hide it. That was new. He wasn't defending. He was reflecting. What do you want? He asked quietly. The question mattered. I want partnership, I said. Not management. He nodded slowly. And the cabin? He asked. The cabin stays. For now? Forever. He hesitated. What if we need it one day? Then we decide together. He looked at the house behind me. You really see this as more than wood? Yes. And if I can't see it that way, then you at least respect that I do. Silence. Snow slid softly from the roof edge. I don't want to lose you, he said. Then don't gamble with us. He nodded. I'll go to counseling, he added. For what? Risk behavior? Ego? Whatever this was. That surprised me. I already scheduled a consult, he continued. Chicago, next Tuesday. Prepared? That mattered. Send me the confirmation, I said. He nodded. We stood there a few seconds longer. I'm not asking for a key, he said quietly. Good. But I am asking for a chance. I held his gaze. Chance requires consistency. I can do that. Prove it. He stepped back toward his truck. I'll drive back tonight, he said. I know. He paused one more time. You're stronger than I thought. I'm exactly who I've always been. He gave a small nod, then drove away. I watched until he disappeared past the pines. The lake looked steadier today. Colder, but steadier. Inside, I placed the updated bank statements on the stack. Debt decreasing slowly, transparency increasing slowly, trust rebuilding slowly. I picked up the brass key again. It still didn't fit the new lock, but it fit the past, and the past deserved protection. He thought the cabin was leverage. He's learning its legacy, and legacy isn't negotiable. The lake froze solid 2 weeks later. Not completely, but enough to hold silence. Thin ice stretched along the shoreline like glass. The dock posts stood stiff against it. Even the wind sounded different, shorter, sharper. I stayed at the cabin longer than planned. Work calls in the morning, legal emails in the afternoon, firewood stacked higher by the door. Distance clarifies what proximity hides. He sent me the counseling confirmation like he promised. Tuesday, 3 p.m., downtown Chicago. Behavioral risk assessment and financial compulsion therapy. I didn't react outwardly, but I noticed. Follow-through is louder than apology. He also sent updated payment receipts on the line of credit. 2 installments made. Interest slightly reduced under the modification plan. He was moving. Slowly, but moving. On Friday, Claire called again. He's complying, she said. But you need to decide something. What? Are you protecting the cabin, or are you restructuring the marriage? I stared at the frozen lake outside. Both, I answered. You can't live in limbo forever. I'm not, I said. I'm observing. Observation isn't indecision. It's data collection. After we hung up, I opened the security camera feed. Snow dusted across the driveway. No movement. The cabin felt steadier now. The for sale sign was still in the shed. I kept it there deliberately. Evidence of what almost happened. Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. It was him. I answered. I had my first session, he said. And? They called it high-risk financial impulsivity. That sounds accurate. He didn't argue. They said it's not about money, he continued. It's about ego reinforcement. I leaned back in the kitchen chair. Meaning? I wanted to feel smarter than the market. And when it punished you, I doubled down. That part hurt. Why didn't you tell me when you started losing? I asked. I didn't want to lose authority. Authority? There it was. You thought telling me made you smaller, I said. Yes. And hiding it made you reckless. He sighed. They asked me why I didn't trust you with failure. I waited. I didn't have an answer. Failure isn't shameful. Secrecy is. I've been thinking, he said carefully. If we're going to rebuild, I need to rebuild differently. What does that mean? I want to transfer my half of the cabin into a trust, with dual control. That caught me off guard. You do that? Yes. Why? So it can't ever be leveraged without both signatures again. I didn't respond immediately, because that wasn't small. That was structural. Send me the proposal, I said. I will. After we hung up, I stood by the window for a long time. The lake didn't move. The ice held firm. Marriage after fracture feels like that. Still, but fragile. Sunday evening, he emailed the trust draft. Joint irrevocable property trust. Requires notarized consent from both trustees for sale or collateralization. He wasn't just apologizing, he was reinforcing. I forwarded it to Claire. She replied an hour later. This protects you. I know. Do you want to proceed? Yes. Not because I forgave him, but because I believed in systems over promises. 2 days later, he drove up again. No surprise visit this time. Scheduled. She 2 p.m. I met him on the driveway, snow crunching under our boots. I brought the revised trust agreement, he said. I nodded. We stood there in the cold, documents between us. No yelling, no drama, just signatures. We signed in front of a traveling notary Claire arranged. Stamped, sealed, recorded. This time my name was not forged. This time it was intentional. He looked at me after the notary left. Does this fix it? He asked. No, I said, but it prevents it. He nodded slowly. I'm not asking for the key, he added quietly. I know, but I am asking to earn it back. Trust is not returned. It's rebuilt. One payment, one session, one honest conversation at a time. We stood facing each other as snow began falling again. Soft this time. Why didn't you just divorce me? He asked. Because divorce is a reaction, I said. A structure is a solution. He studied me. You've been stronger than I deserve. No, I replied. I've been clearer than you expected. He smiled faintly. Not defensive? Grateful. He drove back to Chicago that evening. The cabin stayed, protected, anchored. I walked down to the dock and stood on the edge of the frozen lake. The ice held. So did I. He thought the cabin was leverage. Now it's locked in a trust. He thought he could fix pride with profit. Now he's learning humility is cheaper. And I didn't destroy him. I redesigned the system around him. The first heavy snowfall came overnight. Not delicate this time, not decorative. Real snow. Thick. Quieting. I woke to a white horizon where the lake used to be. The dock was barely visible beneath the drift. Pine branches bent low under the weight. The cabin felt sealed. Protected. Final. My phone buzzed at 7:18 a.m. Email from Claire. Trust filing confirmed. Recorded with Grand Traverse County Registry. Recorded. Permanent. I sat at the kitchen table and read the attached confirmation twice. Joint irrevocable property trust filed and time-stamped. Dual trustee authorization required for sale, lien, or collateralization. He couldn't move it without me now. Not digitally, not secretly, not strategically. Structure is louder than apology. I forwarded the confirmation to him. No caption. 5 minutes later, he replied, "Thank you for not giving up." I stared at the message longer than I expected. Not giving up. He saw this as mercy. I saw it as correction. The line of credit balance had decreased slightly again. Another payment posted overnight. He was consistent. Consistency is slow, but it counts. At 10:03 a.m., motion alert. Driveway camera. I opened the feed. It was a delivery truck. Package left by the door. I stepped outside and picked it up. Inside the box was something unexpected. The original for sale sign. Cleaned, frame repaired, and a handwritten note taped to it. I kept this because I needed to see how close I came to losing everything. No signature. He didn't need one. I stood in the snow holding that sign. The wind moved across the lake, softer now. He wasn't hiding from it. He was confronting it. I carried the sign into the shed and leaned it against the wall again. Not destroyed. Not displayed. Just remembered. That afternoon, he called. I transferred the last crypto balance into the loan, he said. All of it? I asked. Yes. And I'm done chasing. There was no bravado in his voice, just fatigue. And counseling? I asked. Second session Tuesday. Keep going. I will. Silence stretched between us. Not awkward, just honest. Can I ask you something? He said. Yes. Do you still see me as risk? I thought about that. Risk isn't a person. It's behavior. I see patterns, I replied, and I see effort. That's not an answer. It is. He exhaled softly. I don't want to be your liability, he said. Then don't act like one. There was no anger in my tone, just clarity. After we hung up, I walked outside again. The snow was heavier now, the sky low and gray. The lake looked frozen solid. Marriage after fracture feels like this season. Cold, controlled, waiting. I walked down to the dock and brushed snow from the railing. My dad used to say, winter doesn't kill strong structures. It tests them. Inside, I gathered the stack of documents from the kitchen table. The pile was thick now. Deed, affidavit, brokerage withdrawal, loan restructuring, trust filing. I placed them neatly into a waterproof file folder. Then I labeled it. Cabin, structural. Not emotional, not dramatic. Structural. My phone buzzed again. Maya. So? Me. It's protected. Maya. And him? I stared at the frozen lake through the window. Me. He's rebuilding. Maya. And you? Me. I already rebuilt. She sent back a simple, proud of you. That one hit deeper than I expected. Not because I needed praise, but because someone saw the difference between revenge and redesign. That evening, I sat by the fireplace alone. Logs crackled softly. The cabin felt warmer than it had in weeks. Not because the temperature changed, because the threat was contained. He thought the cabin was collateral. Now it's untouchable. He thought pride would carry him through volatility. Now he's learning humility requires paperwork. I didn't scream. I didn't sabotage. I didn't retaliate. I recalibrated. And that shift changed everything. Snow continued falling outside. The lake held steady. So did I. The second snowfall was heavier, not dramatic, just steady. By morning, the lake was a sheet of white, and the dock disappeared completely under frost. The cabin looked smaller in winter, but stronger, like it had drawn inward to protect itself. I woke before sunrise and built a fire. The logs cracked slowly. Controlled heat. No rush. That's what this entire situation had become. Controlled. My phone buzzed at 8:14 a.m. Email from Grand Traverse County. Trust instrument fully recorded and indexed. Indexed. Permanent. No loopholes. No quiet edits. No midnight DocuSign tricks. The cabin was legally fortified. I forwarded the confirmation to him without commentary. He replied 5 minutes later. I saw. Thank you. Not defensive. Not ego-driven. Just simple. The line of credit balance had dropped again. He'd made another payment overnight. Yeah, I logged into the account and checked it myself. Transparency was no longer requested. It was expected. At 10:32 a.m., my phone rang. It was him. I answered. I finished my third session, he said. And? I asked. They said something that stuck. What? They said I didn't lose money because I was unlucky. I lost it because I wanted to be admired. I didn't respond right away. Admired. For being bold. For being ahead. For being smarter. And? I asked. They said admiration is cheaper than integrity. That one landed. Do you agree? I asked. Yes. Silence settled between us, but not the brittle kind. I'm not asking for the key, he added. I know. But I do want to come up next month, if that's okay. Why? To help winterize the dock. The dock. Maintenance. That was new. I'll think about it, I said. Fair. He paused. I don't expect this to reset overnight. It won't? I know. He didn't push further. Growth doesn't demand access. It earns it. After we hung up, I stepped outside. The air was crisp, sharp in the lungs. The spot where the for sale sign once stood was buried completely now. No indentation left. But I remembered exactly where it had been. Memory doesn't erase that fast. I walked to the shed and opened the door. The sign leaned quietly against the back wall. I touched the edge of the wooden frame. Cold. Solid. I left it there. Not as a threat. As a reminder. Back inside, I sat at the kitchen table with my father's brass skeleton key in my hand. It still didn't fit the new locks. It never would. But that wasn't the point. It fit the story before him, and that story deserved protection. My phone buzzed again. Email from Claire. All documents finalized. Financial separation clause remains active until you choose otherwise. Choice. That word felt different now. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was deciding. He thought the cabin was a liability. He forgot it was my foundation. And foundations don't move, because markets do. I didn't destroy him. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't retaliate. I installed systems. I locked doors. I filed records. I converted chaos into structure. That's the difference between revenge and recalibration. The fire cracked behind me. Snow fell quietly across the lake. My phone buzzed one last time. Husband, I'm proud of you. I stared at that message. Then I typed back, me. Learn from me. No heart, no anger, just direction. Outside, the cabin stood exactly where it had always stood, untouched, unmoved, protected. And so was I. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Intro: I froze when my husband put our cabin up for sale without telling me. My name wasn't even on the listing. He thought it was just property. I knew it was my foundation. So I didn't scream. I changed the locks and rewrote the rules.